Hi, and welcome to Treasures of Jefferson County. I'm Matt Keeney with JCTV. As the pleasant weather greets us, Jefferson County hikers have a new place to enjoy the fresh air. The Missouri Conservation Department recently opened a new nature trail at the LaBarque Creek Conservation Area. I caught up with state workers as they transform an overgrown forest into a scenic hiking trail. About 20 state workers getting ready for a hard day's work, testing their gear before a long trek over the creek and into the woods. This sprawling forest is part of the 630-acre LaBarque Creek Conservation Area just off Highway FF in Jefferson County. Thanks to the state of Missouri, it's now open to nature lovers across the area.
The Nature Conservancy used to own part of the property, and we bought part of that property from them, and then we bought the remaining part of the property from a private landowner. And since this is a relatively new area, and we've only had it for about a year and a half, it hasn't really been developed for public use, and so we wanted to put a hiking trail in to be able to provide the public with more opportunity.
After a quick meeting, work teams from the Conservation Department branch out to begin clearing the way for the trail.
The main process for the trails is come out a day or two in advance and hang some flagging tape to delineate the trail where you're going to have it. And then we use backpack blowers to blow the leaves off the trail. That'll help the trail dry out a lot quicker and be usable in a faster rate.
After the first wave of workers clears the leaves, others follow behind, cutting branches and limbs that could hinder hikers. On another part of the trail, a separate team uses more heavy-duty equipment to take down dangerous obstacles.
We do keep an eye out for hazard trees as well, and anything over, say, 6 or 7 feet tall that would have the potential to fall on the trail. We go ahead and get rid of those hazard trees while we're out here. Just mainly a public safety factor to make sure that they won't fall on anybody on the trail.
Those at the end of the line wrap things up by raking, turning thick, dense woods into a pristine 4-mile hiking trail.
It's a lot of work. We try to get together maybe every couple months for a wildlife work day, we call them, and we get all 3 of our work teams together to do a big project like this. Our work team is only about 4 or 5 people in size, and this would take several days for us to come down and do it.
The Conservation Department says there could be more improvements to come at LaBarque Creek, such as a footbridge to help hikers cross the water. For now, grab your hiking shoes because we all have a new nature spot to enjoy in Jefferson County. For directions to LaBarque Creek Conservation Area, call the Conservation Department or visit its website. And as some take to the hiking trail to enjoy the nice weather, others take to the garden, growing fruits, vegetables, or nuts. And recently, the Missouri Nut Growers Association invited a specialist to Cedar Hill to show growers how to produce better nuts. It's a process known as grafting. Now let's take a visit to Cedar Hill, and William Reed of Kansas State University will show us how it's done.
We're going to get right started because if we delay too much, we'll run out of daylight or it'll rain, either one. We start with a 3-flap graft. Everybody knows why we're grafting trees? Huh? Better nuts. If you plant a pecan or a walnut, they don't come true from seed. If I plant this nut, the nuts produced by that tree are not going to be the same. It's because, just like your children, everyone's different. They may have come from the same mama and daddy, but they're all going to be different. In nut trees, they're all wind pollinated, which makes it even more complicated because you have no idea who Papa was. So end up Jefferson County, huh? Well, yeah. Typical native pecan looks about like this, big, wild pecan. And this is an improved variety called Kanza, one of the most popular ones being propagated now in Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois. But we propagate it so we can take a piece of wood from this tree, a little stick, something like this, and we'll attach it to a seedling that we don't know what kind of nut it's going to produce in such a way that they grow together and they will heal, and then the bud from that little stick on top will grow up and it'll be genetically identical to the mother that you took it from. It's the first form of cloning. It's been practiced since before the birth of Christ. You can read about it if you know your ancient Greek. You can read about it there. But the first crops that were grafted were olive, apple, and grapes. Still very important fruit crops for us. It wasn't until the turn of the last century, the 1800s into the 1900s, that the nut trees started to get the same kind of treatment as fruit trees, starting to graft those. Many of the first orchards of pecans planted in the deep south were all seedling orchards, but they soon discovered that they got too much variable, it's too hard to harvest, end up with a lot of little tiny nuts, so they wanted to learn how to propagate, so they did. Thing that makes nut trees a little different than fruit trees is that nut trees require a larger area of cambial contact, and cambium is a very important concept for everybody to grasp. Trees can grow in diameter by making new wood on the inside and making new bark on the outside. And there's a one layer of cells that does that. It's called the cambium. And it's at this time of year, the bark just slips off stems real easy. And that's because that cambium is, in the spring, is really growing and dividing and making new stuff. You get that spring flush of growth. When we graft, we take advantage of that, because a lot of our grafting techniques rely on the tree's bark of the stock tree to slip. This is a good time to graft. We like to graft trees once they get some leaves on them, like this. This next walnut over here is still dormant. The bark won't slip on that, so we can't graft that one yet. But this tree we can graft. So, how do we do this process? We got our cooler, and we've got sticks from a mother. From a variety, this is a black walnut variety named Quick Crop. You got to cut these during the dormant season, because you want your sticks to be dormant when you graft them. The reason is you want those buds to stay dormant a while it gets a chance to heal. If they break bud right away, they don't have a water connection, they'll just break bud and wilt. So we're using our brains a little bit and trying to fake the tree out a little bit. So we use dormant wood, but the stock is actively growing. Cut this in late February, early March, still dormant. Put them in a plastic bag. I got some wet paper towel in here. That just keeps humidity in that bag up. You don't want this wood to dry out, which is very important when we're dealing with frost-free refrigerators now, because the frost-free refrigerator will just pull the moisture right up through that bag. So check your paper to make sure it's moist. See if there's some cloudiness in here, so moisture, so the wood doesn't dry out. Keep it in the refrigerator, not frozen, in the refrigerator. And do not store it with apples that make ethylene. So every guy here has got a refrigerator in the garage. For beer, that's where you put your sign wood. That's the old man's refrigerator. Mama's got her refrigerator inside. And as everybody knows, you don't mess with mama's stuff. That's why no male I know ever uses the master bathroom. Isn't that right? Yes, yes, yes. They walk to the other side of the house.
I go in the basement.
Oh, there you go. He's got to go even farther.
Why you go in the basement again, hon? should know.
You should know. Okay, so when I get ready to graft, I'm at the right time. Leaves here. We got our sign wood. We got it in a cooler. You do not want to leave these out in the sun because they'll heat up and they'll cook inside these bags. So we'll leave them in the cooler till we're ready to go.
Bill?
Yes.
How long can you store those? Just until?
This season.
So how old are those, the ones you have?
The wood is cut from 1-year-old wood and was cut in March of this year.
So you want to get,
You've got to graft it this year. You can't hold it over for another year.
as far as the year that you took it off of the plant, was it the last year's growth?
Last year's growth, yeah. And the reason you use last year's growth is you look at the walnut tree behind you, you see where all the buds are popping? It's from 1-year-old growth. The 2nd-year-old wood has got nothing going on. A lot of times the buds fall off on 2-year-old wood. So you got to use that end growth. Yeah. So that's where we take the wood. Okay, now gonna graft this guy here. Now this first graft is called a 3-flap graft. It's probably the easiest graft for amateurs to get to work because it has the largest amount of area for cambial contact. Tree gets to keel all the way around. They're late. You're late.
Find 'em. Find 'em, find 'em.
Okay, so we're going to take, usually on a tree, I like to cut off a lot of the tree where I'm going to graft it because you've got to force this tree to take a graft. And the more you take off, the more power is going to go to this scion. But you got to do a little bit of balancing act because you don't want to cut off so much it has no leaves left and to hurt the root system. So imagine this tree here, this is the ground level, okay? So this is what I've got growing up and I would graft right in here. With a 3-flap graft, your scion has to be roughly the same diameter as the stock.
Doesn't necessarily have to be on the new growth.
No, doesn't matter on this. Okay. Alrighty then, so I'm going to cut that off there. Okay, we're going to start by preparing this is called a banana graft because we're going to peel the bark on this stalk here like a banana. Okay, yeah.
Would that be a good candidate for next year's stock?
No, because it'll be dead and dry. Got to go with this year's stuff. Okay, I'm going to look at this stem, look for buds here, and as everybody knows, buds grow up. So when you put this together, make sure the buds are going up. Okay. So you see, everybody see there's a bud here. If we peel back the bark downward, we're going to hit this bud. And there's a little piece of wood that sticks up in the bud. If we pull that flap over the bud, we're going to end up tearing the flap. So I'm going to make my first cut to form the buds by going right through to form the flaps by going right through the bud. So these are nice. You can get to bend them around and everything. I'm going to rub the bud off there. Take my knife and slice right through there. And all I'm doing is put enough pressure on the knife to score through the bark. You don't have to cut the wood. All you're doing is scoring the bark. Now this is an official grafter's knife. You can use a pocket knife or whatever, but the important part is that you have a straight edge with a sharp point. Don't use a curved blade. They don't work very well for grafting. Grafter's knives are different than standard knives. They have a bevel on one side of the blade and it's flat on the other side. So these are actually sharpened only on one edge. So it's like a chisel rather than, or a plane. Ah, that's a budding knife.
Oh, that's a budding knife?
Yeah. Why is that a budding knife? It's got a little budding opener on the side, yeah. But anyway, that's what it's designed for, budding knife.
It's been used for grafting.
You can, yeah. Okay,
Would a utility knife work?
yeah, I don't like them because
Blade?
blade's too wide. But some people are afraid to sharpen knives for some reason, and they use utility knives because they throw out the blade and get another one. This has been sharpened, this knife, for 30 years. I still have the same knife.
Getting your money out of it, huh?
Yeah, I am, since they now cost $60 for this knife. Because this is a professional model. It's got walnut handle, German steel, and okay. So this cut through here is about 3 inches long. Okay, I'm going to make 3 of those. You have to be able to judge 3 sides. The reason we use 3 is so the buds line up on it. There's another bud over on this side. And I'm going to go through that too. And if you notice, it's about 1/3 of the way around. So, you go right through here. Go through that bud. About 3 inches down. Third side. When you slide your knife through, make sure the tip of your knife stays in the middle of the stem. If it's in the middle, you're going straight down. If it goes to one side or another, you're going to end up with flaps that get narrower or get wider. So stay in the middle of the stem, about 3 inches down. Okay. Grafting tape is next. This is 4 mil thick plastic tape. It's not sticky on either side, it just stretches. It's also, it's actually called plant tie ribbon. It's the stuff nurseries use for tying up nursery stock. And it's a lot like this stuff, but it's only 1/2 inch wide. This is 2 mils, this is 4 mils, a little tougher. But we use this green plastic tape. A lot of garden centers have it. And we'll tie this on right where we stopped our cuts there. So now we have this ready when we wrap this up. We're not fumbling through the...
How long is that?
Exactly 32.5 inches long. If you go too far, it ain't gonna work. I'm glad Grant's here because he knows all the jokes. Okay, now, sign wood. We picked a piece that's roughly the same size and diameter. If there's a difference, it's better if this is a little bigger than the other way around, because the flaps will overlap each other if this is too small. Okay? Now, even though we kept it in plastic, the end here is dried out. We want to cut it to fresh tissue, clip off about 1/2 inch, and see, it even looks green and fresh for the cameraman.
Did you glue it or wax it any before you put in the refrigerator?
No, too much trouble, and I'm lazy. Okay, now, what we've got to do, and you're really unnecessary. If you just trim that off, you're done. What we're going to do now is take this piece of wood, we're going to expose that cambium on 3 sides. And we do that by taking your knife and just peeling the bark off. And see, I've got a bud down here. I'm going to take that bud off because it's in the way. Now, you notice that the bark, inner part of the bark is kind of a yellowish color. The wood is white down through the middle. And there's a little brown line forming between the two. That's the cambium, that brown line. Everybody see that? When you make these cuts, you've got to make sure that you get deep enough to get down to wood. Okay? When people err in this grafting technique, it's usually because they don't cut these deep enough. They just scratch the bark a little bit and never expose the cambium. So you've got to expose the cambium. Okay, another difficult concept is thinking in thirds. I don't know why humans or everything has to be square, but I just cut toward myself because I can look at the bottom of the sign and just turn it so it's going to be a perfect third, and make another cut, turn it another third, make another cut. So I end up with a bark strip, a wood strip, bark, wood, bark, wood. That way I know I've got cambium exposed all the way up and down on each side. Okay? And if you don't like the way it looks, you can play with it a little bit, but hell, I usually do it perfectly every time, so. Stick it somewhere it stays moist. Under there. You don't believe me? It's hot today. Okay, now we're going to start working on this. We're going to start peeling our flaps. You got to have fingernails, at least 2 thumbnails. Pull the flap back and see how nice that peels back. Oh, that's so pretty. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 3 flaps. One reason we went to 3 flaps is because you don't want to put your fingers on the inside, because it will, your fingers are greasy and nasty and it'll stop the healing process. So you can hold back 2 flaps, use your blade of your clipper to hold down the other one and clip the wood out. Now I'm going to pass this around, and it's got 2 buds on there, and that little piece of wood I was talking to you about sticking up, you can see them. Okay? All right, see, I got my tape. I'm ready. First thing you want to do is start wrapping. Watch these flaps as I go. I get around to the bottom, and those flaps close up. Okay, and then I stop. I'm ready for this. We're going to put this right in here like that. Okay, you want to make sure each flap covers over your cut surface. And because nobody's perfect on all their cuts, sometimes it helps to try another combination. Oh, that's better. Okay. You just look down and make sure the flaps are going to line up with the cut surfaces. Okay, and it's going to hold there as long as I hold that tape. It's not going anywhere. And then I'll continue to wrap this up. Now, as you're wrapping, you want to put a lot of force on here, because you see this bark here, after I peeled it off, it's still got a kind of a round shape that fit that piece of wood we cut out. We've got to take that bark and we've got to flatten it up against those cut surfaces of the sign. It's got to drive all the air out. Okay. And look how nice that is. The nice thing about this grafting technique is because we have 3 sides and they're all the way around the stem, it makes a very strong graft union because it's healing all the way around. And I usually end up going all the way past the top of the flaps and then tie in there. Push down to make sure this wood is touching that wood inside there. Air is not your friend. You got to get all the air out. Okay? Pretty much we're done grafting, except now.
The deal he had when we put the tape on the first time, and that's why he tied the last part of the rib together to make it
I tie it on top. I'm multitask.
Bill,
Yes.
when you cut the wood, and then when you go to put it in and you bring up your 3 little flaps,
Yeah.
and you notice now you got bare wood, should you cut your Zion wood?
Above? Yeah,
above.
still sticking up.
Yeah,
Yeah, just take it out and just
chop it a little bit.
chop it a little bit, because I like to make sure the flaps always cover. If you do enough of these, when you're carving your stems, on your signwood piece. Since I cut toward myself, which is not good, but I do it anyway. My hand is this big. It has never changed. Other things have changed, but this has not changed. So if I put my thumb here and my knife here, it's always going to be the same length. Doesn't matter. When you do it, it's always going to be the same length. So now you know how long these are going to be. You know how long to make those. See, pretty much you're always come the same way. Grandma always used to peel potatoes like that, right? And then for some reason, everybody thought they had to do it this way. Okay, so the other thing is because we're grafting in the field, these are more, you're outside, you want to do some protection from the elements. The first thing we're going to do is put a sunblock on. The callus tissue that forms when this heals together is sensitive to light and will be retarded in bright sunlight. So we're going to use aluminum foil, cover this over. It also helps because we can squish it down tight. It acts as like we just put a cast on there, a little bit of a splint, makes it a little bit firmer. Sandwich bag. We're going to put a greenhouse over this too. Hold the moisture in and keep the temperatures up a little bit. And when you put these sacks on, make sure that you got a big enough hole that you don't pull the buds off as you go down. That's not good if you have no buds left. Okay.
And should you have at least 2 buds?
At least 2, yep. In fact, in a minute, I'm going to cut off one. Okay. I'm going to tie it at the top. I've actually got a bud right here, just above the tie. So there's 3 buds on this stem. Okay, tie it on the top. Tie it down here. Okay, now, hear all those birds out there? Because the minute you walk out of the field, a meadowlark's going to sit on top of this because it's a nice flat spot, and the male is going to sit there and try to attract the female. And they'll come flying in here and they'll break this over. So, to prevent that, we got to put on a bird perch. It's a good thing I got one handy. All you've got to do for the bird perch is provide an alternative place for birds to land. And since we know a little bit about their behavior, they always want to go to the highest spot on the branch. We'll put it a little higher. Using electrical tape, because it holds the bird perch on nicely. You don't want to use this for grafting, because when you pull that tight around there, because it sticks to the flaps, it pulls the flaps out of alignment. So don't use that for grafting. Now we got a place for the birds up here. Isn't that pretty? Got pink flag too. Alrighty then. I like to leave only 2 buds on my scion because I don't want to dilute the growth out with 3 or 4 or 5 buds. So I got 1 bud down here, 1 here, and I'll cut that up there. So I'll leave 2 buds. And since this piece of wood is not connected to the water stream, it can dry out, and it can dry out as long until this starts to heal over. So we're going to put a little bit of protection. This is school glue. I use school glue because it's cheap, and it comes in this handy dispensing container, and I don't get it all over myself. Okay, so we seal off the top, and we're done. And all your neighbors will look at those trees and want to know why you put band-aids on trees. But that's a very simple 3 flap graft. Now there is some things you've got to take care of. As these buds will start to pop in about 3 weeks. And what I usually do is on my bird perch, take some of this kind of tape or whatever you have and tie it to the bird perch so it doesn't get whipped out and broken in the wind. And you can leave this on until July 4th. Once you hit July 4th, very important weekend. While everybody else is drinking beer and watching fireworks, you've got a job to do. You've got to reverse your graft. And reversing means this area where we put this 3 flaps will swell up almost twice the size as above or below. We don't want to girdle that with that tape that we wrapped up. So we'll take everything off very carefully. Take it all off, and then we'll put it back on in reverse order. And this is just to help you remember. You can't just take it off and leave it off because we've got all this sunblock, and in middle of July, it'll just burn it up. It's like a white boy going to the beach. He'll turn red and be in pain. That's what happens to those. They just burn up. So we got to do keep that environmental protection going on over the summer. So we'll take the plastic bag off, take the aluminum foil off, take the tape off that's inside. Then we'll put the plastic bag on first.
Don't tape it.
Don't need to tape it yet, no. Then we'll put the aluminum foil on. The plastic bag acts as a cushion so it can actually expand more. And then aluminum foil is the important part. It blocks the sun so you don't get it sunburned. And then you got all this extra tape that you can just tie it on, and so it stays on. You don't have to wrap it all the way around. The other thing I do July 4th is I remove the bird perch and usually put in a more substantial stake next to the tree. For a tree this size, you may want to use something that comes up about this high. You can tie it to the trunk or whatever. But the reason you use a stake is twofold. Hopefully to ward off deer rub a little bit. Second one is have something you can train this new growth to. So as it's growing up, you can tie it to. So I'll remove and put a bigger stake on it. The following year in March, in the dormant period, I got 2 sticks growing out here, most likely because I got 2 buds. You need to cut it down to 1. That's where you get your sign wood. Next year, just from this one off there. And you can take all the wraps off and leave them off because in March the sun is not that hot and the tree will finally get used to the sun and get a gradual tan. And that's it. You want to remove things that are growing on the stalk below the graft because you want all the tree's energy forced on that new growth, and train the tree like you would any other tree. A nice central leader, branches out to the side. But you want to make sure all the growth comes from this here. And then you'll have nuts on this size tree, you'll have nuts in 3 years. Yeah.
Not that this would ever happen, but when I rewrap it around the 4th,
Yeah.
and there's absolutely nothing going on, it like didn't take.
Yeah, if you don't have bud growth, if this didn't grow out, there's no reason to rewrap them because it's not going to take.
Can I take that main tree and try cutting it a little lower and grafting it again next year? If it didn't
Yes,
take that first
yeah. If it doesn't go this year, just let all the sprouts come up and then you can graft 2 or 3 times if you want until you finally get it to go. Some people it takes a little bit more practice. Okay, has everybody got this in their mind? Yes.
In the spring, how early and how late is the period when you can graft?
For a 3 flap graft, you can graft as soon as you see green growing on your stalk. See that tree behind you? That's about as early as you want to go. This one here is still dormant. You can't graft it yet. And you can graft until about the 1st of June. And then it gets too hot. And they just burn up. If it gets above 90 degrees during the day and you graft, it's just not very successful.
Bill, didn't you say one time when the butt the size of an ear with squirrel's ear?
I've never measured a squirrel's ear, so I don't know. No, as soon as you see green, pretty much, we're ready to graft. Okay, any questions on this?
Now your rootstock there, that's got to be pecan also?
That's a walnut. We grafted a walnut. Yes, walnuts on walnuts, pecans on pecans. Hickories on pecans, but not pecans on hickories.
Why not?
So say that again. What all can you graft your pecan
I
onto?
thought that's how they did pecans. You put
No,
hickory on.
no, they're actually it's a cross. Pecan is the largest of the hickories.
Okay.
Okay, it's the fastest growing, biggest of all the hickories.
Okay.
If you're interested in growing hickory nuts for nuts, you want a root system that really pushes the top. Hickories are known for taking a real long time to start producing nuts. If you put them on pecans, it shortens it quite a bit. Now, if you graft pecan onto hickory, what will happen is your root stock will be this big around, and then where it's grafted, pecan will be out here like that. And it actually stunts the nut production on the pecan because it doesn't have enough oomph. Now, to get hicons is actually a hybrid between pecan and hickory because they're both hickories. A pecan was cross-pollinated by hickory, planted the seed, and you get a hybrid, just like a mule. And hicons are basically mules. They don't produce very well. So, any other questions?
Some pecans require a pollinator.
Yeah, they all do.
Could you use this graft on the one tree, getting the sign from a different tree?
Yeah, you could put in other words, two varieties on one tree.
Yes.
You can do that, but if you've got two trees, pecan pollen will travel a quarter of a mile. So you could have a tree up there by the house and one down here and still get pollination. So, and they grow funny when you have two different varieties because each variety has a different habit. Some have narrow angles on their branches, some have wide, some have lighter leaves, bigger leaves. It just looks awful. Okay, anything else?
Right. Do you leave all these other things on there, or do you cut those?
No, I'll cut those off. I'll cut those off after I see this goes.
Okay. Okay.
And in about 3 weeks, I'll know whether that's going to take or not.
So you just want the one?
Yeah. And then I'll start trimming off below. Okay.
On this, on where they made the cuts first time.
Yeah.
All right, will that heal over?
Yeah. Eventually. If Grant puts enough fertilizer on them. He's hard on trees, that guy.
Is there any surgery needed on that once you get it unwrapped after everything's done?
No, because it's a nice tube and
All the-
it's all the way around and it just goes right on up. Yeah.
If you're having a problem with bugs or caterpillars in
Yeah.
the spring of the year and you're going to graft that tree,
Yeah.
do I have to apply herbicide to it?
Herbicide kills weeds.
I mean,
Insecticide kills
insecticide,
bugs.
yeah.
Typically, pecans and walnuts, there's not a whole lot that bother them until you get to Japanese beetle season, which is when. I don't have Japanese beetles yet, so.
About June.
June? Yeah, so we already have buds out by then. If you get walnut caterpillar, fall webworm, Japanese beetle, anything that's going to eat leaves during the summer, you need to address those. Because anything that's going to eat the leaves off is going to slow your growth down.
Okay. I mean, I have it in spring. I already had to spray my pecan trees.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
What did you have on them?
like a caterpillar about that.
Wow. No, not a cutworm. Do they eat holes in the leaves?
No, they're gone.
They're completely gone.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, she's got something wild. Probably got a sawfly. which is a, it's in the wasp family.
No, I've
It's
seen
a,
them.
I know, it's caterpillar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I did, you know,
Yeah,
spray
if-
for 'em, but I just wondered if I'm going to cut the tree off, would I had?
It's, you should control any insects that's going to weaken the stock.
That will do it for Treasures of Jefferson County. I'm Matt Keeney. Thanks for watching JCTV.